Federalist 40, Part 2. This is paragraph 4. The recommendatory act of a Congress in the words following, whereas there is provision in the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union for making alterations therein by the assent of a Congress of the United States and of the legislatures of the several states, and whereas experience hath evinced that there are defects in the present Confederation, as a means to remedy which several of the states, and particularly the state of New York, by express instructions to their delegates in Congress, have suggested a convention for the purposes expressed in the following resolution, and such convention appearing to be the most probable mean of establishing in these states a firm national government. He continues, this is still from the resolution issued by the Congress. He says, resolved that in the opinion of Congress, it is expedient that on the second Monday in May next, a convention of delegates who shall have been appointed by the several states be held at Philadelphia for the sole and express purpose of revising the Articles of Confederation and reporting to Congress and the several legislatures such alterations and provisions therein as shall, when agreed to in Congress and confirmed by the states, render the federal Constitution adequate to the exigencies of government and the preservation of the Union. Again, they focus on what's best for the Union. So he keeps on saying, these are what the Congress told us to do. This is a resolution from the Congress, which were representatives of all the people of the states. And by the way, here, when he says that Congress, it is expedient that on the second Monday in May next. In other words, Congress had said that in second Monday of May of 1787, the Federal Convention or Constitutional Convention is going to meet in the city of Philadelphia. So Congress had actually picked up a date too. So we are going with what the Congress said. Congress realized that there should be a major change in this old Constitution. By the way, when I said that, I realized a professor recommended this book to me, Business of May Next by Miller. And it is a really good book if you get a chance to take a look at it. I read it earlier this year. I emailed the professor who's one of the well-known professors of the founding era of the United States, and I asked for a list of maybe some books that she can recommend. One of the books that she recommended that I had not read was this book, and it's a pretty good book. So I'm going to continue with the next paragraph. From these two acts, it appears first that the object of the convention was to establish in these states a firm national government. Second, that this government was to be such as would be adequate to the exigencies of government and the preservation of the Union. Third, that these purposes were to be effected by alterations and provisions in the Articles of Confederation as it is expressed in the Act of Congress, or by such further provisions as should appear necessary as it stands in the recommendatory act from Annapolis. Fourth, that the alterations and provisions were to be reported to Congress and to the states in order to be agreed to by the former and confirmed by the latter. Okay, he's repeating what he said in the last two paragraphs. Just keep in mind, this Federalist paper is a little long, and really it to us might seem like, well, what's the point of this long paper? Just notice that we are taking the fact that the states are united now for granted. Back then, they were not united yet, so it was really important for him to answer his critics, to answer this important question, which was a very important question. Who authorized you to write a new constitution? So keep in mind that at that time, it was very important for him to go through all these paragraphs in this paper to let the anti-federalists know that he's taking them serious, because a lot of people were asking the same questions too. So keep that in mind. Bear in mind, this Federalist is going to be long, but the reason is, at that time, we didn't have a union yet. People were truly asking why you guys wrote a new constitution. Okay, from a comparison and fair construction of these several modes of expression is to be deduced the authority under which the convention acted. They were to frame a national government adequate to the exigencies of the government and of the Union, and to reduce the Articles of Confederation into such form as to accomplish these purposes. There are two rules of construction, dictated by plain reason as well as founded on legal axioms. The one is that every part of the expression ought, if possible, to be allowed some meaning and to be made to conspire to some common end. The other is that where the several parts cannot be made to coincide, the less important should give way to the more important part. The means should be sacrificed to the end, rather than the end to the means. The most important thing for us when we gathered in Philadelphia was the future well-being of these states. Suppose then that the expressions defining the authority of the convention were irreconcilably at variance with each other, that a national and adequate government could not possibly, in the judgment of the convention, be effected by alterations and provisions in the Articles of Confederation. Which part of the definition ought to have been embraced and which rejected? Which was the more important, which the less important part? Which the end, which the means? Let the most scrupulous expositors of delegated powers, let the most inveterate objectors against those exercised by the convention answer these questions. Let them declare whether it was of most importance to the happiness of the people of America that the Articles of Confederation should be disregarded and an adequate government be provided and the Union preserved, or that an adequate government should be omitted and the Articles of Confederation preserved. Let them declare whether the preservation of these articles was the end for securing which a reform of the government was to be introduced as the means, or whether the establishment of a government adequate to the national happiness was the end. at which these articles themselves originally aimed, and to which they ought, as insufficient means, to have been sacrificed. Again, do you want to sacrifice the future happiness of this country just because you want to hang on to the old system? The old system that we have seen is not going to be good for us. We have this last 11 years, the experience of the last 11 years to teach us this. Then he continues, but is it necessary to suppose that these expressions are absolutely irreconcilable to each other, that no alterations or provisions in the Articles of Confederation could possibly mold them into a national and adequate government, into such a government as has been proposed by the Convention. We'll continue in the next video.